Is the chair of the Government Affairs Task Force for the Leawood Chamber of Commerce, and this interview is being conducted on behalf of the Johnson County Public Policy Council, comprised of chambers of commerce in Johnson County and the Greater Kansas City Chamber. Jointly, we host the site votejoco.com, nonpartisan website where voters can learn about candidates for public office. Today, we have with us Fred Lehman, a candidate for the State House for the 28th District, covering parts of Overland Park and Leawood. Thank you, Fred, for joining us today to share with our members and visitors to Vote Joco about you and your priorities if you're elected. We want today's conversation to begin spending just 3 to 4 minutes with you telling us a little bit about yourself and why you chose to run for the Kansas House. Fred, go ahead.
Well, I first want to say thank you to the Overland Park and Leawood Chambers, as well as the Greater Kansas City Chamber, for hosting these type of informational events. I want to be able to use this opportunity to provide some clear differentiation between me and my opponent as a candidate for the council for the Kansas House of Representatives. I'm a pro-business veterinarian, and I'm honored to be endorsed by Kansas City BizPAC, which is of the Greater Kansas City Chamber and the Civic Council. I have a long record of having been a small business owner. I've worked in academia. I've worked in large corporate businesses, and also I have spent a year as a congressional fellow in Washington, D.C. So now then, I plan to continue that service as a representative of District 28 in Topeka and being the voice of reason as we move forward. I intend to bring diplomatic solutions and integrity to a process that is mired in gridlock and caused by single issue legislators.
Great, thank you so much. The next few questions will focus on business issues that our members have told us are important to them. If you could spend about 2 minutes responding to each of these, that'll allow us time at the end for you to make a closing statement. And we'll keep us below our 30-minute mark. So what do you see as the top 3 business policy issues facing the state of Kansas in the next year?
Our top priority, of course, is to get our fiscal mechanism running again in the state as it recovers from a post-COVID-19 era. We need to try to preserve and protect those priorities such as public education and infrastructure, and make sure that they're at the top of the list of projects getting funded. We also need to consider how we can enhance our local control and make sure that issues that are relevant to local governments are handled by local governments. Issues that are addressed in Johnson County may not be relevant in Western Kansas, so we have to be flexible as a state and provide opportunities for local governments to make the decisions they need to be making.
Thank you. Given the current economic situation, as you mentioned, balancing the state budget will undoubtedly be a huge task in the coming year. What steps do you feel are key to making this happen?
Well, the number one thing that we'd have to do is to get our economy returning to pre-COVID-19 levels. That should be our priority, and we should do any number of things that make that happen. The governor has made some short-term cuts, but with the looming deficit, we are going to expect that there'll be a mix of cutting of the budget as well as trying to boost our economy at the same time. All our departments can probably expect some type of fiscal constraints, but we must be investing in infrastructure such as roads and rails and internet to make sure that we have the revenue generation engine to make our state vibrant again.
Thank you. Can you share with us your views on K-12 education funding in Kansas?
K-12 education funding in Kansas The Kansas legislature and the Supreme Court has created what they feel like is an equitable solution to make sure that public education is appropriately funded. We can't back off from that now. So, in fact, the state constitution of 1861 said that public education should be funded by the state. And so, if we think about all that the schools are doing in terms of preparing our workforce for supplying the resources for local businesses, plus they're also supplying any number of social programs such as feeding those that are at financial disadvantage. We're also taking care of those that are physically and mentally handicapped. So there's a number of different roles that our schools are playing. And in fact, the high quality schools are what draw many people to our area and add to the quality of life that we enjoy here in Johnson County.
Thank you. What type of economic development policies will you support to encourage job growth and business expansion in Kansas and our region?
Well, we first have to start finding ways to lift the restrictions that we've had on our state government and our state businesses. And so we can do that by, number one, implementing best management practices by which people can get back to work and do it safely. There are those things that we can do, and as a veterinarian, we deal with disease in populations all the time, and so we are confident that there's things that can be done to get our economy rolling again. Secondly, we need to be investing in those type of things that put people that put people to work, including infrastructure and things of that nature. From an incentive perspective, we need to be creative in how we think about what's the next step for not only Johnson County, but for the state. We need to be looking at creative programs that incentivize companies to come here, especially entrepreneurs and new science and business technology. The Kansas Bioscience Authority was one example of a good program that encouraged entrepreneurs to come to this area. We also need to be looking at how we can expand broadband. We've seen the gap that exists due to the education needs with the COVID-19. But if we have adequate broadband throughout the state, then that gives all of the state access to conduct business in rural areas, as well as to have educational opportunities that may not have existed otherwise. The other things we need to do is make sure we have good training and retraining programs for adults, and that we can use this opportunity to see where the gaps are and what the needs are for adult education and career retraining, and make those available, especially to those people that are economically disadvantaged, at affordable rates. So there's several things that we need to do to get involved in that regard.
Next, what are your views on healthcare policies for the state, Medicaid expansion in Kansas as well?
Well, if you recall, Governor Brownback was the individual that really discouraged us from participating in the Medicaid program, largely due to the stigma that existed with association with the ACA. But I thought at the time, and I think now, that it's probably long overdue that we get involved in the Medicaid expansion and making sure that the 130,000 eligible Kansans have access to quality health care and have access to preventive health care. We as Kansas have continued to fund other states and making sure that and letting our dollars go to other places, but we have not got that return. So it's time that we participate in the program and get our share. It's my understanding that the bill that Senator Denning moved forward was basically fiscally neutral. And if we can help 130,000 uninsured or underinsured Kansans, it's almost a no-brainer that we should be involved if, in fact, it is near or at a fiscally neutral place.
Thank you. What do you believe most distinguishes you from your opponent in this race?
Well, my vision is to grow Kansas. It appears my opponent wants to take us backwards through unsuccessful economic policies by reverting back to the experiment that was failed in the past and resulted in one of the largest tax increases in Kansas history. We have a new reality in dealing in a post-COVID environment. This is going to be calling for innovative solutions and creativity. I'm a pro-business candidate. I've been endorsed by the Kansas BizPac, and I have a number of different qualifications that enable me to participate, lead in the legislative process, as well as to reach out and bring people together for the benefit of Kansas.
Great, thank you. We appreciate your responses to all these questions. And then, like I mentioned in closing, if you want to spend 3 to 4 minutes with a summary of issues or anything we left out for our viewers, go ahead.
Well, I'm a Kansan. I'm a long-time Kansas Republican, and I've chosen to be a Republican because of the tenets that the Republican Party stand for. Those things like smaller government, things like fiscal responsibility. Those are the basics of the Republican Party, and there's not a purity test beyond there. I am a Kansas Republican. However, I do embrace those things that Senator Bob Dole taught us, things like diplomacy, things like communication, things like respect for others, things like getting things done for the benefit of Kansas and eliminating the gridlock that we experienced in our state government. It's important that we find ways to get together to move forward. It's important for our local communities. It's important for our state as a whole, that we continue to move forward together.
Great, thank you, Fred, for joining us today, sharing very important information with our voters in this race. And as a reminder for everyone tuning in, there's more information on all of our candidates, including candidate questionnaires and answers, available at votejoco.com. Thank you.